Good evening. I now call the June 14th meeting of the Wallingford. Sorry, my computer is not muted. There we go. Or something is creating audio in the room. Okay, sorry about that. We had some echo audio in the room. I now call the June 14th meeting of the Wallingford-Swarthmore School Board to order. In opening, as you're willing and able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to start by asking Ms. Fagor to take the roll call.
Mr. Ballas,
Here.
Ms. Semino, Dr. Huff. Here. Mr. Cudis,
Here.
Can we turn up Mr. Cudis's audio? He said here, but
he said here.
yeah.
Ms.
Here.
Flint,
Here.
Mr. Sullivan,
Here.
Mrs. Walkman,
Here.
Ms. Witkowski-Smith,
Here.
Dr. Grandy,
Here.
Mr. Berman,
Here.
and Dr. Palmer is absent. Dr. Grandy, you have 8 voting members present.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So this evening, we will jump right to board announcements to get started. Just a couple of quick announcements. The board met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss litigation. And as was just mentioned, Dr. Palmer is not able to join us this evening due to travel. And then the only other announcement I wanted to make is a enormous congratulations to our class of 2021. Graduation was very exciting last week to see our seniors celebrating. I guess they're not seniors anymore. They've officially graduated from Wallingford-Swarthmore School District. So it was exciting to see. And certainly the car parade through the district was also a lot of fun as well. And also congratulations to all of our students who are getting close to the end of the school year, including our students who are making transitions this year beyond our seniors, our elementary students who are moving up to middle school, and our middle school students moving up to high school. So it's always a fun time of year, and I know our kids are excited. I will take us directly, because Dr. Palmer is not here, we don't have a superintendent's report this evening. I'll take us directly to our focus topics for this evening. We do have 3 on the agenda. I'm going to ask Mr. Abbott to come up for the first one.
Thank you, Dr. Grandy. It is this time of year, every year, we take a moment to honor the Wallingford-Swarthmore School District employees that have retired over this past year. And what a year it was. For the staff that made it through this year, it really should equate to some power of 10. With every turn, a new twist came about. So congratulations to this group of 17 that we honor this evening. We begin tonight by honoring Laura Dubrow. Laurie, who has been with us for 14 years as our one and only home and school visitor. Now, Laurie will have the distinction of being the first home and school visitor to retire from the district because she has been the only home and school visitor the district has had. But certainly being the first home and school visitor wasn't her destiny starting out. Laurie was actually a reporter for the St. Petersburg Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Although that may make sense after getting your bachelor's from Harvard, it wasn't too long, though, before a new career percolated, and you ended up getting your master's of social science from Bryn Mawr. From there, it was social worker all the way, with employment at the Wordsworth Academy, Resources for Change, CHOP, and the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. This unlikely transition from reporter to social worker actually makes sense. And you recognized, as you once wrote, and I quote, Reporting gave me plenty of experience in parachuting into a situation, figuring out what was going on, and making strategic decisions about how to proceed in a relatively short period of time. Sounds like social work. Congratulations, Lori. Would you come on up? Now, Lori, I was just joking. You didn't have to say anything. I hope you have something prepared. Congratulations. Lucille Scudero, or Seal as she is commonly known by, came to the district as an instructional support staff member in 2007 with tons of experience in all things related to being a teaching assistant. With experience at the Grosse Pointe Public School System in Michigan, the Jonesboro Elementary School in Tennessee, or locally from Cades, United Cerebral Palsy, Ashland Middle School, or Our Lady of Fatima, how could we go wrong in hiring her? Oh, and she also taught at Redeemer Christian School and the Lansdowne Montessori School. Just to add a little bit more. So with a resume like that, how did it all turn out, you may ask? Here are just a couple comments. Seal is wonderful. She works so hard, she is willing to do anything. She gets all the work done and then some each day. Seal is great with the kids and will happily help out with a lesson or pull kids to work on things individually. Seal is an absolute pleasure to work with every day. She works very hard for the benefit of students and teachers. She is faithful and accurate in everything she does. Congratulations, Lucille, and I know Wallingford Elementary is going to miss you. Eileen Van Sant, who has also been at West as an instructional support staff member for the last 18 years, came to us with a more varied experience. Not only did she have experience as a teaching assistant and personal care assistant at the Swarthmore Presbyterian Nursery Day School, she worked for Prudential and the Franklin Mint as well. That experience translated into a very successful career with us, and probably the following comments said about Eileen sum it up the most. What a remarkable job you have done. Your insight, dedication, and consistency have truly enabled your student to succeed in a public school environment. You are the model of composure, and by being so, provide assurance to colleagues that situations might not be as critical as they appear. Mrs. Van Sant has once again demonstrated throughout this year why she is given some of the more challenging cases to work with. Congratulations, Eileen. Richard Wall joined the district in 2002 when he filled in for an art teacher on leave. It didn't take long for him to show everyone his stuff, because shortly thereafter, he was named to be the teacher of the Passport Gifted class at Strathaven Middle School. His principal noted that after Richard's very first year, that he had had an incredible year at the middle school, and that the principal was thrilled with the knowledge that Richard and the Passport program will become a permanent place within our school community. I guess permanent isn't, you are retiring. And that program existed because of Richard. When anyone would visit the class, there was a complete unknown of what they would encounter. On one day, the students would be investigating the question of what is sleep and why do we need it? And then the next, it would be what makes an invention American. It was always a true pleasure to observe your classes. So all this creativity and ingenuity wasn't by accident. As an accomplished sculptor in his earlier life, Richard has always had the gift of looking at the problem from the other end. Whether it was designing a sculpture or a lesson plan, Richard did so with the end product in mind. And for us, it was those students for all those years. So you, my friend, are retiring. And I will forever miss and remember the times you have walked into my office with another book you found in some corner of some mom and pop bookshop about climbing the Himalaya, and how we would discuss and dream about the climbing seasons on Everest and K2. Now, for those of you who are listening, don't think we are climbers ready to summit these peaks. But for Richard, my bet is that he will find his way to the K2 base camp with maybe 1 foot up that mountain. Congratulations, Richard. Bill Thorpe has been with us for 25 years. So that means we are back to 1996. But before we get to his time here, let's take a moment to honor the fact that he served in the Air Force with experience in flying such planes as the F-111 and C-130. Certainly, when we first interviewed him for a middle school math position and asked him about his ability to use and understand technology, I think that interview team probably had received quite an impressive answer. Even after joining the district, Bill continued on with his service in the Air Force as a reservist, even managing a deployment for Operation Enduring Freedom, and then again a few years later. For the last 25 years, though, Bill has been a fixture in the middle school where he's been a math and/or science teacher, along with sponsoring numerous supplemental activities. Always involved, Bill would sponsor activities like the stock market game and ski club. He even coached the wrestling and swimming teams. For me, though, I will always remember my time in the cargo hold of that C-130, flying off the coast of New Jersey while Bill was in the cockpit leading the way. I know that the military advertised as a chance to show appreciation for the employers of reservists. However, I suspect that from the bank turns I experienced that day, it was also an opportunity to do a bit of showing off. Congratulations, Bill. Norma Long first started working for us 29 years ago in 1992 as a teacher's aide. But it only took a few years before the principal knew she needed to hold the most important job in the district, confidential administrative assistant to the principal, where she has remained ever since. It isn't often that a person of this stature retires from the district, so let us all remember this moment. Norma has truly been the example to live by and live up to, although she may not admit to it. Clearly, when someone writes in her application, as you did, Norma, that you want to work here so that you can make it a little easier for the teacher, as well as give something to the students, we knew we were hiring a stellar individual. Or when you wrote that my greatest contribution will be to provide some continuity at West during the transition of the principal and secretary retiring. and that I feel I can help make this transition smooth and very successful. Norma, is people like you that allow others to succeed. Although life goes on, it'll be hard not to see you behind that desk. Congratulations, Norma. With the grand total of 35 years in the district, Linda Ackerman is at the top. Back in 1987, Linda's first job in the district was as a costuming intramural coach. I assume that was for one of our theater positions because it's a job you continued on with for quite some time. And you must have made a great impression because the very next year you had a home economics teaching position with the senior George King over at Strathaven High School. But within a year, you found your time split between the middle and the high school, and eventually finding your real home here at the middle school, where you have been ever since. And for the entire time, you have been one to always advocate for the Family and Consumer Sciences program, championing the successes of so many students and the skills they gained while under your care. Linda, you have always maintained a level of composure that showed all students that they were completely cared for in your classes, regardless of how that sewing project or cooking experiment turned out. I know so many previous students of yours will always have a fond memory of what you taught them, always a life skill, and maybe a sewn item or two sitting on a shelf somewhere. Congratulations, Linda. Not here tonight, but also individuals we'd like to recognize are Angel Ramirez, who was our coordinator of custodial and cleaning services with 4 years. Donna Pujan, who was at SRS as instructional support for 16 years. Ann Burns at the middle school and as an instructional support staff member for 16 years. Anna Marie Finley, a teacher at Nether Providence Elementary with 17 years. Susan Riches at SRS with 17 years as instructional support. Patty McGarry in transportation with 18 years. Cheryl Sweeney Foy in HR with 19 years. Sue Votnick at SRS as a special ed teacher with 25 years. Diane Hannum at Strathaven Middle School with 31 years as sitting behind the front desk. And then lastly, and although she isn't here tonight, nor does she have the most years of experience, Dr. Palmer is retiring after 10 years. So although 10 years doesn't rank up there, the amount of time, effort, and thought she has put into this district certainly does. After all, how many times did you drive by the middle school on a Saturday or Sunday and see a gray, now white, Hyundai parked in the lot? Well, that was Lisa's. Lisa first came to us as our business administrator, and I remember doing a reference check on her back then. I was told that if there's anyone that can find the money, it was Lisa. I knew back then that even with the lingering 2009 financial crisis, she would have the district's back. Further, I remember one of Lisa's budget presentations where even I understood the nuances of the situation. Lisa's work ethic can't be matched. Even now, as her retirement is upon us, she plowed through the updating of so many policies as evidenced by tonight's agenda. And believe me, policy review, update, and approval is an arduous task. It wasn't that long ago, actually it was a while ago, that half an hour could be consumed discussing whether we should use the term board or district in our policies, much less determining substantive issues. Congratulations to you, Lisa, and thank you. With that, thank you for allowing us to take this time to honor our retirees. And to our retirees, congratulations and thank you for all your years of service. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ferg. And thank you again to all of our retirees for all your service to the district and including Dr. Palmer. Ferg, I'm not going to let you get too far away from the podium. I'm going to take us to our next focus topic, which is updates to the WSSD Health and Safety Plan.
And if it's okay, I would allow the retirees not to feel obligated to stay.
Absolutely.
While we have the presentation queuing up, tonight we'd like to present what the health and safety plan, how it's been modified, and what it's going to look like going forward. I wish I had filler, but thanks, AJ. So let's start with a little bit of background information. The current health and safety plan that we have now sunsets at the end of the day on June 18th. That is the end of the school year, the end of the day. So the district needs to create a new health and safety plan or a new version of it. And it's required by Section 2001 of the American Rescue Plan in order to continue to receive the funding that we have. So that will take place on June 19th, this new plan. This new plan will be effective for all summer programs and into the next school year. All aspects of this new plan are in accordance with local and state departments of health. Incorporated into this plan as well is the flexibility to adjust one way or another based upon the current pandemic conditions. So while we are putting this into place to take us into the next school year, obviously, if the pandemic conditions change, we would be able to change as well. So probably one of the most commonly asked questions or thoughts will be, what will happen with masking? As of June 28th, according to the governor, that's when masking mandates end. So that's when they will end with the district. So from June 18th until June 28th, or from June 19th until June 28th, we have this new plan in effect, but we're still wearing masks on campus until the 28th. The district will continue to support individuals who prefer to wear a mask, and we will encourage those that are not vaccinated to wear a mask. But requirement of masks will end on June 28th. And for social distancing, Pennsylvania lifted the order for physical distancing and occupancy limits. With the lifting of the order, as of June 19th, all school buildings and offices will not require the social distancing that we've been using. School buildings and offices will allow for full occupancy. Buses will operate at full capacity. Cleaning, disinfection, and ventilation. All these topics should be familiar because they're similar to how we laid it out in our previous health and safety plan. Pretty much things will continue, but they won't be as intense. We'll continue to use the EPA approved disinfectants. We'll have daily routine cleaning. If there's a positive COVID case, we are going to clean and disinfect those areas, which as we have been. The building climate conditions will be monitored daily. And the filters in our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems will be changed regularly. All normal practices in keeping a clean facility.
Good evening. I'm going to finish up with the additional health and safety considerations. So besides masking and the social distancing and the cleaning and the sanitation, we have additional health and safety considerations that we have to look at. This next section that I'm going to be looking at with you is the strategies and mitigation procedures that we will use going forward. So first, we're going to look at lunch and recess. In regards to lunch, our previous guidance included 6-foot social distancing and forward-facing seating during lunchtime. And even though students were outdoors for recess, there were still many guidelines for students to follow this year. However, with the lifting of the restrictions, our lunch and recess activities will return to normal as in previous years before COVID. Lunch is going to be served in all buildings, and students will still be encouraged to wash hands and use sanitizer before and after lunch and recess. Piggybacking off of what I just mentioned about and being somewhat redundant, but it is something here to look at and mention again, that our best practices are encouraging hand washing prior to meals and snacks, after meals and snacks, transitioning back to class from being outside and using the bathroom, and after coughing and sneezing. Hand sanitizer will continue to be available throughout the buildings, in classrooms, at lunch, and in our high traffic areas. And the district will continue to implement and promote these best practices by posting our health and safety CDC signs to remind students and staff to continue to stay healthy by doing these simple everyday things. So for screening, this year we used Qualtrics to screen students before school started. Beginning of next year, we are not planning on using Qualtrics. However, we are still asking students and staff and visitors to self-screen before coming to school. And we are asking that staff and students who are ill stay home. Staff and students who become ill during school hours or during activities will also be sent home. That's very similar to what we've been doing in the past. We are going to follow our immunization and communicable disease policy, which states that students shall be excluded from school for the period indicated by regulations of the Department of Health for certain infectious conditions. The school nurse shall report diseases or conditions to the appropriate local health authority, and we will implement health guidelines and universal precautions designed to minimize the transmission of sickness. The district is also looking into using our antigen and Q test if someone is symptomatic during school hours. Like the process we used at graduation, we're also hoping to do testing with secondary students with parent permission if students become sick during the school day. We're still working on this with the nurses. We're going to be talking about it over the summer and kind of designing a policy and what it's going to look like. But right now, that's part of the screening process that we have in our plan, which says that this may happen. And we're still doing contact tracing. We're going to continue to report all COVID cases to the Chester County Department of Health and keep a list of positive cases and close contacts. We're going to send out communication to stakeholders like we did this year. And also just like this year, anyone who is COVID positive will need to tell their administrator or supervisor. The nurses will provide information on quarantining based upon the guidelines of the CDC or the Chester County Department of Health.
All right, thank you.
Here for questions.
I just want to make one comment first, and then I'll see if board members have questions. I think that I just want to point out there's an attachment to the agenda this evening, just to make sure everyone saw it, which is updated guidance from the Chester County Health Department. And what you're seeing here is reflective of the guidance from the Chester County Health Department, which is that if COVID-19 incidence rate and percent positivity remain low, they are supporting beginning the next school year with no mitigation measures, including face coverings and layering in mitigation strategies if and as needed. And so this plan reflects that guidance. And I'll just say that, these are the enormous benefits of the dramatic reductions that we've seen in COVID-19 in our community, which is in no small part due to widespread availability and use of highly effective vaccines. And so we are in a much, much better place as a community today, and allows us to begin to move in this very positive direction, I think, for our students when they return to school this fall. Let me ask if other board members have questions about the plan. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Dr. Grandy. I just have one question about the timing. I was thinking about any camps that may be running on our campus, and there's one that is in my mind that I'm wondering if it runs the week of the 21st for all girls. Is that on our campus? Maybe I'm wrong. I guess my question is this: are there camps between the 21st and the 28th on our campus that might be affected by the 28th date?
I don't know the latest status, but there may be one-week camp that occurs here at the middle school.
Okay.
I don't know its status, whether they're holding it or not, actually.
Okay,
But
I was just,
that's the only one that I would know of. And I think that the majority of that activity is outside,
which would be masks off at this point, is that right?
because it'd be play activity.
Right, okay. All right, because that's the only question that I have. Okay, thanks so much for the presentation. It's great news.
Any other questions? Oh, let me check. No. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. That takes us to our third and final focus topic on the evening, which I'll let Ms. Q get to the podium to talk about the proposed 2021-2022 final budget.
I agree with Ferg. I need material to fill the space. All right. Good evening. This is the final budget presentation of this year, and I promise I'm going to keep this short. As previously noted, we were going to be tweaking this budget right up to the end. We still have some unknowns affecting the budget, including state revenues and federal revenues. As previously discussed, the budget is based on a full return to school for the 21-22 school year. It also includes the cyber option that was approved at a prior board meeting. Let's talk about the revenues. Local revenues make up just over 79% of the revenue budget. We've changed real estate taxes based on new assessment values, but because of the countywide reassessment, this doesn't really affect the revenue stream that much. However, there was an effect on our special ed exception that caused a $50,000 reduction in real estate taxes. We also did increase transfer taxes by $100,000 and investment earnings by $10,000 because of the market recovery going on. State revenues make up just 19% of our budget, and the tweaking here was in the area of Social Security and PSERS as we made some changes to our salary and benefits. It was only about $11,000. And our federal revenues, which make up 1/3 of 1%, remain the same. In the expenditures, salaries and benefits make up approximately 70% of the budget. There is an increase in salaries and benefits of about $168,000, mostly related to the various employment agreements throughout the district. Purchase services represents about $17,000, and we had a reduction in that area of about $120,000. Debt service and fees makes up just about 9% of the budget, and we had a small reduction of about $20,000 in the fees area. Supplies are just under 3.5%, and we made no changes. And the budgetary reserve, which is less than 1/2 of 1% of the total budget, remains the same. So our total expenditure budget is $89,125,228. In the fund balance, we started the year at $6.3 million. We are still projecting a $901,000 reduction of the fund balance to balance the budget. This is a reduction from what we previously had estimated at 1.3 if you go back to the preliminary budget. Once we subtract that deficit, we'll be at approximately $5.4 million. Now, as a reminder, we do have that budgetary reserve in there. So if we didn't use the budgetary reserve, we'd end up with a fund balance of approximately $5.8 million. Also, as a reminder, the state permits an unassigned general fund balance of 8%. That would be $7.1 million. At the moment, our entire fund balance is 5.4. So we're approximately loosely $7 million below what that 8% limitation is. Of course, we need to talk about taxes. We had to adjust our current our county's current reassessment values. The district went from the $1.4 billion of last year to almost $2.6 billion. With the reset, the district needs to reset the millage rate based on that current reassessment value. In doing so, we go from 48.3654 mills down to 25.9640. This actually is a slightly different millage rate than what was presented 2 weeks ago. We had an adjustment provided by the county that dramatically swung our assessed values, approximately $27 million, which would change our millage rate. This year, we're eligible for one exception, special ed. This, as a reminder again, is for the prior 2 years of special education costs. So this exception is simply making up for money that we've already spent. In addition, we obviously also have included the Act 1 index. The Act 1 index for this year is 3.0%, but because we are in a countywide reassessment, we must use last year's index rate, which is 2.6%. So using the 2.6% plus the special ed exception creates a tax increase of 4.27%. So our final millage rate is 27.0726. When we talk about the median value of a home, normally I'm talking about $179,000. With last year's millage rate, that was at 48. Real estate taxes were about $8.6 thousand. This year's median assessed value is $334,000 with the projected tax rate of the 27. The real estate taxes on that same location will be $9,054. This $9,054 includes both the base millage reset as well as the tax increase. Any questions? Told you I was going to keep it short.
Thank you, Ms. Q. Questions from board members? Go ahead, Matt.
Martha, we just heard the presentation on the health and safety plan changes, and I know that we had costs, extra expenses that were due to mitigation steps that we took, and in particular lunch. Does the ability to start going back to our regular lunch program, is that figured into the budget as it sits before us now?
The budget is set up using the Seamless Summer Option Program for the coming year to start the year. The Seamless Summer Option still gives us the ability to feed all children 18 years of age or younger. They can get both breakfast and lunch 7 days a week. And so that program is what we're starting the year with. That actually, the federal government has made the decision to increase the reimbursement rate for the Seamless Summer Option in the coming year. So that's actually good news there. In addition to that, we're also opening up a la carte service K through 12 in the coming year. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to simply put out a salad bar or something like that. All of the a la carte options will be prepackaged options so that it won't be things that can be, the food can be touched as you're picking it up.
And that's all reflected in the
Yes.
budget now. Okay.
Martha, I wanted to ask, so you covered the maximum allowable on the fund balance by statute or regulation, I'm assuming, and that would have been 8% of the budget, or 7.1 million. Did I understand that right?
The number is 7.130, et cetera.
Okay, so where we see the projected fund balance based on the budget before us is about $1.7 million below the max that we
Right.
would be allowed to have. Does dipping into the fund balance to the degree that we are, in your opinion, have any impact on our future bond ratings or borrowing rate? I mean, it's 1.7 on a $89 million budget. So I'm not anticipating that it does, but I'm curious as to whether.
Currently, at the moment, you're probably not going to have any effect on bond. If you continue to balance the budget through your savings account, and let's be honest, that's what your fund balance equates to. Eventually, you're going to spend your savings account, and then you will have an effect on your bond ratings.
Okay, thank you.
And I know that the, so that was it 7% or 8%, sorry, is from the state.
Correct.
Auditors also have an opinion about how
The
much
state
fund balance you
auditors-
should have, which seems to be sometimes at odds.
Yeah, it's
With-
significantly at odds.
What do auditors recommend?
State auditors recommend that you have as your fund balance 3 months worth of funds to cover expenditures. So if you take an $89 million budget, divided by 12, times it by 3, your fund balance is a lot bigger than $5 million. And literally, I had an argument with the last time the state auditors were here because they were saying our fund balance is way too low. And I said, no, it's inside the legal limit of 8%. It can't be more than, no, you have to have much higher. We went back and forth, I don't know how many times over this. And ultimately I had to show her the code that says I'm only allowed 8%. Otherwise, she was going to cite the district for having a fund balance too small. And general accepted accounting principles, basically, it's good accounting policy to have 3 months worth of expenditures as your savings account. Unfortunately, in a school district, when you're using public tax dollars, that's not possible.
We don't really have any updates on the state budget, I guess, at this point. It's-
They're
yeah.
negotiating. That's about all
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Q? All right. Thank you, Ms. Q. Okay, that takes us to time for audience recognition for response to items for action on the agenda this evening. And just as a reminder, public comment is a time for district residents and taxpayers to speak to the board about an issue that is before the board or may come before the board. It's a time for us to listen and hear perspectives and experiences from our community. And while we can't answer questions at the meeting, there's always an opportunity to follow up after the meetings if there is a specific question for the district. For now, we do continue to have two methods to comment, in person and by phone. And just a reminder that for now, everyone that's in person must wear a mask. For phone messages, members of the public wishing to address the board can call 610-892-3470, extension 1102, to leave a recorded comment subject to a 3-minute time limit. Any calls made prior to 5 o'clock on the day of our meetings are transcribed and made available to the board. Anything after 5 o'clock but prior to the end of the meeting will still be transcribed, distributed to the board, and made a part of the record, but will not be acknowledged during the meeting. So is there anyone who would like to speak tonight about a topic on the agenda, including our updated WSSD health and safety plan? And I think we have one called in comment that maybe we'll start with while I wait and see if someone wants to come to the podium. Kelly, do you want to read our called in comment?
Sure. This comment is from Amy Caruso, Colonial Drive, Wallingford. I would like to congratulate the Strathaven High School class of 2021 for a great graduation week, a great culmination of all your studies, and a thank you to all who contributed to these activities. This is a well-deserved and enjoyable week of celebration for all in the community. Moving forward, my comments on the budget are that in recent Finance Committee meeting, it was suggested to propose several budget options which did not use a reserve fund and did not increase taxes at such a high rate of 4.4% for next year. Will we see various budget proposals with different scenarios? How does the continued use of the reserve fund balance impact the district's bond rating, borrowing costs, and impact debt service? If there's future plans for building repairs and projected construction, what cuts would be pending? We've heard that a dire situation is upon us. What are the various scenarios we should expect to encounter? Regarding the Edmentum online contract, which is still pending approval, what are the contractual changes that worked in the district's favor for accountability? Is there a break-even number of students needed to enroll to make this program worthwhile? What data was used to determine the need to proceed, even when we see that students are enrolling in other options and other online and cyber schools outside of the district? How much staff time for proctoring and program administration is being added to run this program? How many years will this program run to make the investment valuable or worthwhile? Regarding policy review, I've attended every policy committee meeting this year. There's been an enormous, nearly 100 policies under review, which are the cornerstone for the operation of the district and a significant pillar of board responsibility. Last week, unfortunately, I was not afforded time for public comment at the meeting. It ended abruptly with stalled discussions. It seems to me from this firsthand experience that this is an example of where we need more communication and more direction on best managing important district work. My comments on current policies for third reading on policy 323 tobacco and vaping products in regard to transportation, I was suggesting that there be a perimeter distance specified for bus drivers where they cannot smoke in close proximity to vehicles where children could inhale secondhand smoke. Policy 819 for suicide, the suicide prevention policy. Where are the guidelines for procedures in the current 6 to 12 curriculum? I was unable to find that. And finally, policy impacts staff time and budgets and job descriptions. It might be necessary to see how these changes impact job descriptions regarding high school entry, construction and safety, building security, as well as the transportation audiovisual program that would correlate to district job functions. Lastly, if there's any way to have a tentative list of policy numbers on an agenda at policy meetings in the future, that would be quite helpful. The other standing committee meetings that are public, which I've attended this year, share their policies and relevant documents and materials in the public meetings that take place. I think that the same standard would be best applied to any new proposed policy brought forth by the administration. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks for your patience.
Yeah,
if you could
of
just
course.
introduce yourself, name and street.
All right. Good evening. I'm Robert Cristaldi of Putnam Boulevard in Wallingford. Right now I'm a junior at Strathaven High School. I'd like to talk about the new health and safety plan being discussed tonight. I support it and I asked it be approved without trouble. The masking part is most important to me because I have a hearing loss and I have been since the day I was born. Experts agree that a hearing impaired person must be able to see the mouth to communicate effectively. Since I have not been able to see lips this year, it has been very devastating. It really has been. Seeing this new health and safety plan is really good. And it helps to know that some of you care because it has been very hard for me and I would not do this year over again. I think if this district is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we need to be inclusive to all people, regardless of their ability, and we need to be equitable to all students. This school year, I have been really disappointed with the lack of compassion and the lack of grace from this board with regard to students like me. What I have received is not equitable for what I need. This whole year, it's been about follow the guidelines, follow the guidelines, follow the guidelines, and a little flexibility and compassion would have gone a long way. I have heard over the last 16 years a lot of disregard from me and my situation, but I never thought I'd see it from my own school district, who's supposed to help me, who's supposed to teach me, and who's supposed to advocate for me and for what I need. Let me just say it's very cowardly to wait until the end of the school year to make this decision. I want to thank Ms. Lentz. She has been really compassionate about my situation. Thank you. It means a lot. Since the day I was born, I felt like one cause of my heartache has been my hearing loss. The school year has been a constant reminder of this heartache, and it's exhausting. I've taken a gut punch every single day. I'd be happy to discuss this with any member in private, if just let me know. But having a hearing loss with masks, loud HVAC system, social distancing has made hearing almost impossible. I know for everyone, this will be a jump to pre-pandemic life, and it will be a big one. I know it will be a good boost to morale. It's good to see this disease's reign of terror end. If I honestly believed this plan would put anyone in danger, I'd tell you to vote it down. Once again, I strongly encourage you to approve this new health and safety plan. If you aren't going to do it for them, if you aren't going to do it for the other students, for the staff, do it for me. Even if you don't do it for me, do it for all those students, hearing impaired or not, who feel the same way, but are too afraid that the loud minority will accuse them of being anti-science or a danger to others. I know there's a lot of people who agree with me and who are too afraid to come up here and say it. If you aren't going to do it for me, do it for them. I have a feeling this will make a lot of people angry, this new plan. But have the courage to do the right thing for students like me and for everyone else. Let's give the power of personal choice back to the students and the parents. Let's follow the science. It is worth it. The risk is worth the reward. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments this evening? All right, welcome. Name and street, please.
Nanette Whitsett, 801 Ronaldson Avenue. I come before the board because not as an anti-taxer and don't believe that our taxes aren't well spent on what we provide the children and communities that the schools serve. But I'm very concerned as an activist for a marginal community of South Media, the burden that this increase in taxes would cause. I know that there's an option because you even said it. We can take the exception. And when you take the exception, you increase the taxes that a majority of people, not just in my community, but in other communities that maybe have households that are struggling. And this pandemic we've shown that it doesn't worry about race, creed, or color. And with families that had two parents working, they now have one parent working or they have reduced hours and their household is struggling. Some of them are trying to put bread and butter on their table and it just exists. And thank God the school accepted the money from the state to provide the breakfast and lunches 7 days a week. So I thank the board for voting for that and taking it. So I just want to know what's the benefit that outweighs the additional burden of the tax increase. And with that, if you could take it in mind, like, is there going to be some type of public notice where this additional money is being spent? Like, are we just taking it because you can? But I do think that each board member, as they go over, I don't know if that was a final decision and it can still be negotiated, should consider their neighbor. Because if one thing the pandemic taught us is that we do have neighbors. So I thank you for allowing me to speak.
All right, thank you. Are there any others who would like to comment? Good evening.
evening.
Just introduce your name and street and then go ahead.
Hi, my name's Michelle and I'm on Chestnut Parkway. I stand up here today as a woman who graduated from the school district over 20 years ago, as a mother of 2 children, and also someone who worked in the medical field for over 10 years as an analyst with a bachelor in science and 2 additional certifications. My son, who is 5 years old, is now permanently disabled since he was 14 months old as a result from pharmaceuticals. I spent many days researching genetics and pharmaceuticals, so what I'm about to talk about brings me great concern for the children in our community. Nothing is ever a one-size-fits-all. On May 22nd, Wallingford-Swarthmore School District vaccinated over 700 people from students ages 12 to 17 years old. You hosted another vaccine clinic this past Saturday. On the school district website on page 4 of your COVID vaccine consent form, you have parent guardians signing to the risk of COVID-19 vaccine as described in the emergency use authorization with consent and release. That states emergency use authorization. Students started to return in person full day April 12th, and 6 weeks later, you had parents sign consent forms for an experimental vaccine FDA approved for emergency use only. If this was an emergency, why did children return to in-person full days 6 weeks prior? What were the outbreak number of cases in our school district for a need to mass vaccinate over 700 people? Some risk and side effects that have been reported with Pfizer are difficulty breathing, swelling of the face and throat, fast heartbeat, a bad rash all over the body, dizziness, weakness, severe allergic reaction, diarrhea, vomiting, and feeling unwell. This is from the Pfizer insert linked to the consent form on the school's website. It then states the vaccine is still being studied in clinical trials. It lists more, but the interesting thing it says is these may not be all the possible side effects. One of the side effects that's not listed is death, but there have been almost 6,000 deaths reported after the shot. The information on the insert you provide to parents is misleading. This week's numbers of reported adverse events among all age groups following the COVID vaccine surpassed 329,000, according to data released from the CDC. The data comes directly from reports submitted to Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, also known as VAERS. Every Friday, VAERS makes public all vaccine injury reports received as a specific date, usually about a week prior to the release. And today's date showed that between December 14th, 2020 and June 4th, a total of 329,000 total adverse events were reported, including 5,888 deaths, which was an increase of 723 deaths over the previous week. There were 28,441 serious injuries reported and up to 3,082 compared with last week. Among 12 to 17-year-olds, 59 reports of heart inflammation and 19 cases of blood clotting disorders. In the US, over 299 million COVID vaccine doses had been administered as of June 4th, and 162 million of those doses were Pfizer. This week's data for 12 to 17-year-olds shows that over 5,000 total adverse events, including 165 rated as serious and 4 reported deaths among 12 to 17-year-olds. The youngest death reported include 2 15-year-olds, a 16-year-old, and a 17-year-old. 773 reports of anaphylactic amongst 12 to 17-year-olds, with 98% of those cases attributed to Pfizer. 59 reports of myocarditis, which is heart inflammation, and 58 attributed to Pfizer COVID vaccine. So all but one. 16 reports of blood clotting disorders, all attributed to Pfizer. The insert also says that there's no information on the use of Pfizer vaccine with other vaccines, but the school requires 1 dose of Tdap and 1 dose of meningococcal on the first day of 7th grade, and 1 dose of the meningococcal on the first day of 12th grade. New documents obtained suggest routine quality testing issues were overlooked in the rush to authorize the use of the Pfizer vaccine, and that the US and other governments are conducting a massive vaccination program with an incomplete characterized experimental vaccine. Regulatory documents revealed Pfizer didn't thoroughly examine biodistribution and pharmacokinetics issues relating to its vaccine before submitting the vaccine to the European Medicines Agency for review. In key studies called biodistribution studies, which are designed to test where an injected compound travels into the body and which tissues or organs are accumulated in, Pfizer did not use the commercial vaccine, but instead relied on a surrogate mRNA that produced the luciferase protein. The EMA reviewer shared this explicit information. Pharmacokinetics refers to the study of what the body does with a drug and the drug's movement throughout the body. The time course of its absorption, bioavailability, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Regulatory documents also show that Pfizer did not follow industry standard quality management practices during preclinical toxicology studies of its vaccine, as key studies did not meet good laboratory practice. Reminder to all the parents watching that the Pfizer vaccine is the vaccine our school district administered. On June 11th, an FDA advisory committee held a virtual meeting on Thursday to discuss what data would be needed to vaccinate children under 12 against COVID under the emergency use authorization or licensure. Several experts spoke against the plan, saying that the benefits don't outweigh the risk for young children. Peter Dolsche, PhD, Associate Professor of the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy and Senior Editor of the BMJ, said that during the open public hearing session, there is no emergency that would warrant using EUA to authorize COVID vaccines for children. Kim Witzak, an FDA consumer representative, expressed great concerns over the premature approval of COVID vaccines for children. And she also stated that children are neither in danger or dangerous and questioned the timing of last Friday's CDC announcement of the rise in children being hospitalized with COVID. When
Can I ask you to
parents-
start to wrap up, please?
I'm
Thank you.
almost done.
Okay. Could I also just we need to have your full name for the record. I think when you introduce yourself,
Michelle Carroll.
Thank you.
When parents start reporting these adverse reactions, what is the school going to do about it? I guess nothing, since you had parents sign consent forms. I'm sure these reactions will just be swept under the rug, like the poor girl who was assaulted a few months ago, or maybe like the time back in February when the school tried bringing in a Marxism group to teach my 10-year-old about queer affirmation and that she can choose her own gender, male, female, or neither. What is neither anyway, and what gives the school the right to teach my child things that should be taught at home? I'm letting you know now that the parents in our district and surrounding districts are watching every move the school district makes when it comes to education of our children. And I'm going to say this one last time. You have been entrusted with providing education for our children, and that's all. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm not seeing, or one more, okay. Good evening. If you could just introduce yourself, name and street, and then you can go
The
ahead.
mask on, I take it?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
My name is Barbara Bergerlens. I live on Manchester Avenue in the district. And I had a daughter who came here all through the district. And I just want to say that this was a crappy year and a half to be on the board. And that I think you guys did not only the best job you could, but probably way beyond what was normally asked of you. And I just want to thank you on behalf of my household for all the work that you've put in.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? All right, so that takes us to our first items for action this evening. And the first is the approval of the May 24th regular business meeting minutes, and I so move. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Ms. Bukowski Smith,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The motion passes 8-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to personnel. We have quite a few items in personnel this evening. There are 22 items. Are there any on the list anyone would like to separate from the rest? Okay, so just bear with me for a moment. First up, we have the approval of 3 resignations as listed in the agenda. Then we have approval of 10 appointments. James Fitzpatrick, Coordinator of Custodial and Cleaning Services. Daniel Massey, art teacher at the middle school. Thomas Lauser, Autistic Support Special Education teacher. Sarah Pincus, ELA teacher at the middle school. Erica Friscoli, English as a second language teacher. Helena Kim, 0.5 English as a second language teacher. Andreas Sawicki, a science teacher at the middle school. Julia Sandler, science teacher at the middle school. Jennifer Zwitch, executive administrative assistant at West. And Catherine Karasek, instructional support at SRS. Then we have approval of 5 leaves of absence as listed in the agenda. And we have approval of a renewal agreement with substitute teacher services from 2021 to 2023 as stipulated. We have approval of 5 changes of assignment as listed in the agenda. We have approval of additional assignments for Kate Evans, Sarah Holt, and Miriam Drew as listed in the agenda. We have additions to the 2021 summer school program as listed in the agenda. We have approval of additions to the 2021-2022 conference requests as stipulated. We have approval of the appointment of PBIS coaches at the annual stipend of $3,000 per staff member during the 2021-2022 school year as stipulated. We have approval of the change of salary status as listed for Lillian Amenta and Samantha Hart. We have approval of compensation of the hourly wage difference for painting duties conducted by custodians for the 2021-2022 school year effective July 1st. We have the approval of the 2021-2022 stipend for Mary Fagora as school board secretary as stipulated. We have approval of all WSSD certificated staff to be 2021-2022 homebound staff and tutors. We have approval of Christine Fredericks to attend trainings as stipulated. We have approval of the spring athletics supplemental postseason pay as listed in the agenda. We have approval for all school psychologists for additional work days at their per diem rate not to exceed 75 total days during the 2021 summer. We have approval of all certificated staff for development of individual educational plans at the rate of $37 per hour not to exceed 90 total hours during the 2021 summer. We have approval of the home and school visitor for additional work days at their per diem rate not to exceed 30 hours during the 2021 summer. We have approval of the listed staff under item S to work on the PBIS curriculum at the rate of $37 per hour for the 2021-2022 school year. There's hours listed in the agenda as not to exceed for this item. We have approval of Anne Marie Ward to work on the WSSD gender support plan at a rate of $37 per hour, not to exceed 12 hours. And we have approval of the staff listed under item U to work on the social and emotional learning curriculum. And finally, approval of all school counselors for additional work days at their per diem rates not to exceed 15 hours total during the 2021 summer. So all of these items are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'll second.
Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Dr. Huss,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Ms. Wachowski Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The personnel items pass 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to policy. We have 2 sections of policy on the agenda. The first section is for our policies for third and final reading, which are all the same as when they were presented for their second reading. And that's policy 113.1, 113.4, 218.3, 311, 314, 317.1, 318, 323, 328, 332, 334, 819, 904, 906, 907, and 913. And all of those policies are attached to the agenda. And then we have a series of policies for their first reading this evening, which I will read off. And again, just as a reminder, these will appear on 2 subsequent agendas for 3 total readings before final passage. So the first is policy number 008, the district organizational chart. Then 103, equal opportunity and non-discrimination in schools and classroom practices. 103.1, non-discrimination, qualified students with disabilities. 104, equal opportunity and non-discrimination in employment practices. 113.2, behavior support. 115, career and technical education. 123.1, concussion management. 146, student services. 201, admission of students. 203, immunizations and communicable diseases. 209, health examinations, screenings. 216, student records. 222, prohibition of tobacco use. 226, searches. 227.1, vaporizers, e-cigarettes, and other electronic substance delivery systems. 233, suspension and expulsion. 235, student rights and responsibilities. 235.1, surveys. 247, anti-hazing. 248, on harassment. 249, bullying. 250, student recruitment. 255, educational stability for children in foster care. 335, family and medical leave. 348, harassment. 609, investment of district funds. 705, facilities and workplace safety. 709, building security. 800, records management. 810.2, transportation, video, audio recording. And 818, contracted services personnel. And just like those first items, these are all attached to the agenda. So we have these in two separate groups, just reading them off. I guess first question for the board, is there anyone who would like to separate out these two sets of policies before voting on them? Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Marilyn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Any discussion? Kelly?
I'm sorry. Did we just separate? We did not separate the two groups of policies.
We did not separate.
I would like to offer some comments on the ones that are available for first reading tonight.
Okay.
And I will follow this up in writing because I have a number of different comments, but for the benefit of the public, I think it's important to share them. One comment is on policy 115, career and technical education. This is more of a, the guidelines that are shared in here that relate to child abuse prevention. I'm just questioning whether they really belong separate in here or maybe incorporated in child abuse prevention policies. It seems kind of weird to have it laid out in a career tech program and then the entire policy is about child abuse. So that was just one general comment. On policy 222, prohibition of tobacco use. I am questioning under what circumstances would a report potentially be made to local police department. And I note that the words used here are may, not must or will. And so I'd like to understand that actually with respect to that particular policy. Let's see. I want us to consider policy 226 searches very carefully and second and third reading and think about that one in particular from an equity perspective. Policy 227.1, vaporizers, e-cigarettes, and so forth. I did not see anything in this one in the policy or the accompanying administrative regulations as to how students and families will be educated with respect to the requirements in this particular policy. And this one has very significant consequences. And we have a very significant vaping issue in our school district. And so Jen, did you see it in there? I missed it. If it's there, I'm sorry.
I was thinking about the first three you discussed, and then I kind of blanked on this last one you're discussing. And I don't want to blank because I am one of two people here from the policy committee.
And I will follow all this up in writing for you, Jen, too. This one was the 227.1, the vaporizers, e-cigarettes, and so forth. And what I couldn't find in it was how students and families would be educated about those rules and the consequences of not following the rules because they're considerable. And like I said, we know we have a vaping problem in the district. Policy 200, 200, which is suspension and expulsion. Actually, I'm not sure if this has the policy.
I don't think it's 200.
What's the? Is it 200?
Sys-
233, sorry, 233.
Yep.
There's a small typo on that one on page 3 that I'll share. Let's skip that one. On 235.1 surveys, there's a section in here around when marketing or data might be made available for marketing purposes, which I'm questioning why that would ever be necessary, and I'd like to know why that would be necessary. Sorry, no, this is a lot. The harassment policy 248, I didn't see in the policy or the administrative guidelines how students, parents, guardians would be informed about how to report an instance of potential harassment. Again, might have missed it if it's there, didn't see it. The bullying policy 249, it does reference in the administrative guidelines that it would be posted on the website. I would encourage us that administrative guidelines need to indicate that it would be in more than just the website, but in the student handbook as well at a minimum. And then the final one that I had a comment on is 810.2, which is transportation audio, video, or video audio recording. And I wondered where the guidelines would be for establishing who has access to the video or audio that might be recorded on a bus or student transportation. So what are the protections around who has access to it? Again, I'll follow that up in writing and share that with you.
That would be great, Ms. Wachtman. And I can say that for the members of the community that are seeing so many policies come before this district, it seems like within a month, that is what's happening. And from what I'm told, that is sort of a pause from all the culmination of all the work that was being done surrounding COVID. So while this looks maybe to someone who is on the outside as overwhelming, it has been a lot of work from the policy committee, but I can assure you that we have combed a lot of the words of these policies extremely carefully and had 15 or 20 minute debates over where commas go and what exact words would be used. I did want to ask you, Ms. Wachtman, about which policy was it where you said for employees with vaping and nicotine, was that on school property? And if you could share that to me in this meeting, that would be helpful. So was it 227.1?
I made a comment on.
Or 222? Or we can do it this way. If you want to note it for me in writing by the next one, I'm concerned that maybe the one word that you're talking about is one we debated for a while changing, and it is not, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it should not be may.
It's 222 and is the one that I was referring to where I saw the use of the word may.
Could I just have a moment to look at that, Dr. Grandy?
Sure.
And it's on page 2.
At the bottom?
Not at the bottom of page 2. I was looking at the new language above first offense, law enforcement incident reporting. You see it?
So this policy pertains to students,
Right.
which you can see at the top of the policy where it says 200. We evaluated another policy that had similar wording that pertained to employees. And Mr. Berman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when it came to the employees, we changed that may to shall. And we left the discretion with the superintendent for the students at may. But that one small word was caught and discussed for a while, and that's what the committee came up with. Certainly can be discussed further, and probably one of few people that really like to discuss small words and commas. So we can do that before the next reading, but that was caught, I shouldn't say caught, but that was addressed when it came to employees. This is students, but when you have the other ones in writing, we can talk more and maybe bring some things back for the second reading.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the policies? Again, that second group is for first reading, so there'll be 2 more opportunities for discussion on all of those policies. Okay. Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Ms. Wachowski Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The policy items pass 8-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to curriculum, where we have 9 items. I think I counted right, 9 items. Yes. Are there any on the list anyone would like to separate from the rest? Okay. The first is approval of 2021 or 2020-2021 related services provider contracts as stipulated. Second is approval of summer 2021 related services provider contracts as stipulated. Then we have approval of 2021-2022 related services provider contracts as stipulated. We have approval of a tuition contract, a 2020-2021 tuition contract is listed in the agenda. There's too many years here. Summers, years, last year, this year, next year. Next, we have approval of 2021 ESY tuition contracts as listed in the agenda. Approval of 2021-2022 tuition contracts as listed in the agenda. And we have approval of the WSSD health and safety plan as stipulated. Approval of the revised 2021-2022 school year calendar as stipulated. And finally, approval for Bridget Welsh to conduct educational research in the district per the attached proposal. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jerry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. Any discussion? Go ahead, Kelly.
Two comments. The first with respect to the change to the calendar. So I would ask or the public to make sure that they take a look at this. So the previously approved calendar, the student start of the school year was Wednesday, September 8th. We subsequently came to our attention that that is the second day of Rosh Hashanah, and we don't normally have it fall on the first day of school. So recognizing that the first day of school will now be Thursday, September 9th, so that our students and families are able to participate in that important celebration. Secondly, with respect to the health and safety plan, I would like to respond to comments tonight. I know that we don't do that in public session, but following comments of a similar nature in a prior meeting, I received feedback from members of the public dismayed that we did not make a statement around misleading information that's being shared publicly about the safety of vaccines, about the importance of vaccines. And so I'm going to do that tonight and respond in saying that the district provided a venue in which we were able to vaccinate an enormous number of our children to bring safety to our community. And I'm very proud to have participated in that along with many parents in our district, many teachers, many administrators who made that possible. The vaccines were provided through a local pharmacy who's been a terrific partner here in our district and in Delaware County. We're in the position that we're in, that we can lift the masking requirement because so many people have been vaccinated, number one. Number two, the importance of continuing to get vaccinated for those who may not have the first or the second vaccine cannot be understated. We have variants that we've seen the impact of the variants, the Delta variant in India, now in China. It is quickly becoming the predominant variant here in the United States, and it will have an impact on those who are not vaccinated. It's already being seen. And so I felt it was very important considering I received public feedback around the fact that we didn't take issue with some of those statements last time. That's all.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Ms. Witkowski Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The curriculum items pass 8-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to finance, where I believe we have 13 items. Well, we'll find out when I read them. Are there any on the list anyone would like to separate from the rest? Okay. So the first one is approval of the banks as listed in the agenda as depositories of school funds during the 2021-22 year. Second is approval of the petty cash custodian list as stipulated. Authorization to make auditor recommended budget transfers to close out the 2020-2021 school year in preparation for the year-end audit. Approval of Martha Q as collector of WSSD real estate taxes for the borough of Swarthmore, transitioning to the interim and/or permanent business administrator following Ms. Q's departure through June 30th, 2022. Approval of 2 change orders to the Strathaven High School secure entrance projects as stipulated. Approval of the service agreement with the CCIU for 1 technology support specialist as stipulated for July 2021. Approval of the Moorfield Communication CCTV support agreement for the 2021-2022 school year. Approval of the Alien Vault license agreement renewal for the 2021-22 school year. Approval of participation in the E-rate program for the 2021-2022 school year. Approval of Deborah Crete for E-rate consulting services for the 2020. Is that the 20? Which school year is that? Let me make sure I read it right. Yeah, so that's. Yeah, it should be 21-22, correct? Okay. Ms. Fagora, can we change that in the agenda? It should be the 2021-2022.
Yes, I will.
Okay. In the amount of $6,000. Approval of the 2021-2022 Lightspeed renewal with Integra One as stipulated. Approval of the 2021-22 SysCloud G Suite backup renewal at a cost not to exceed $6,000 as attached. An establishment of a new student activity account for the class of 2025. All items in this section are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Matt. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Marilyn. Any discussion? Okay. Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Ms. Witkowski Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
I don't think we heard you, Larry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
Dr. Grandy, the finance items pass 8-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to our other section of the agenda, which has 2 items on it. Does anyone want to separate those 2 items? Okay. We have approval of reappointments to the Board of Trustees of the Delaware County Community College for the term indicated as stipulated. And then secondly, the appointment of Matthew Sullivan as Assistant Board Secretary until the Board of School Directors reorganization meeting in December 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Kelly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Marilyn. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Ms. Witkowski Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
Motion's passed 8-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to our time for audience recognition for response to topics not on the agenda. I won't repeat what I said earlier. I know we don't have any called in comments. Do we have anyone in person for a comment? Okay. Does anyone have a report from a district subcommittee or out of district role? Okay. Do we have any old business? Any new business?
Quick new business, Dr. Grandy. As we wrap up the year, I just wanted to give a special thanks to a group that I don't hear thanked very often, for no other reason that probably everyone's mind is a little overextended, but to our Department of Transportation that has probably really had to make adjustments literally every day, sometimes every hour, based on the COVID restrictions and the COVID hurdles that came their way. So as the year wraps up, I just wanted to say a special thank you to the Department of Transportation, who is behind the scenes and working every bit as hard as everyone else, and probably on some days really, really harder. So thank you to the Department of Transportation on behalf of the whole school board for everything you did to get our kids to and from school safely this year.
Well said. And I did get to ride on a school bus during the car parade, and it is a throwback and a lot of fun. So thank you to our transportation department. Any other new business? All right, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.